Hi everyone, and thank you for joining the March 2020 Stampin' Class by Mail. I'm Gina Wieselman of MySweetPaper.com, and I can't wait for you to make this month's cards using the Timeless Tulips bundle. I've teamed up with Brenda Cardinal, another Stampin' Up! Demonstrator, to provide these monthly classes by mail. This month, it's Brenda's turn to show you how to stamp and assemble your cards, and next month, it'll be my turn. Make sure to watch to the end of the video to see a sneak peek of my designs and to hear about some bonuses for signing up. Let's get started stamping. Here's Brenda.
Thanks, Gina. Hi, everyone. I'm Brenda Cardinal of stampintulip.stampinup.net, and I can't wait to show you how to stamp and assemble your Timeless Tulip cards. Tulips are my favorite flower, and when I saw the Timeless Tulip bundle, I knew I had to have it, and I knew we had to do a Stampin' Class by mail with that bundle. Actually, I'm pretty sure Stampin' Up! Made that bundle just for me. For our cards today, besides the Timeless Tulip bundle, which includes the Timeless Tulips stamp set and the Tulip Builder Punch, we'll also be using the Pleased as Punch Designer Series paper, the linen thread, and the 5/8 inch petal pink organdy striped ribbon. In addition to this, we'll also be using the Classic Label Punch, the Everyday Label Punch, and the new Label Me Fancy Punch. And we'll be using the Layering Squares dies and the Stitched Labels dies. The images used from these additional punches and dies have been pre-cut for you if you are taking the Stampin' Class by mail from us. As a side note, I want to mention the Pleased as Punch Designer Series paper was made to not only go with the Tulip Builder Punch, but also with the Heart Punch Pack and the Umbrella Builder Punch from the 2020 January to June mini catalog, along with a small Bloom Punch from the Celebration catalog. Please reach out to Gina or I if you need any supplies or if you'd like to talk about becoming a Stampin' Up! Demonstrator or host a stamping event. Let's get started with our first card. Our first card design is the Pleased as Punch Tulip card. If you are taking the Stampin' Class by mail from Gina or me, all your parts and pieces needed for each of the 3 card designs have been cut to the correct size and packaged with envelopes and shipped right to your home. If you have not purchased a kit from one of us, here is a still image of what you'll need to make the cards along with the measurements. Pause the video if you need to, cut and prep all the materials you'll need, and then come back when you're ready. The first thing we're going to do is we're going to stamp all of our parts and pieces. So let's start with our inside greeting, and we'll be using our Granny Apple Green ink. And we're going to make this one a Get Well card. Of course, if you wanted to use a different greeting from a set, you can make it a birthday card or a Mother's Day card. Okay, we did that. And now we're going to stamp the hello on the Everyday label. Now this is the punch that we used, and we pre-punched that and included with your kit. So we'll ink that up and we'll stamp it right here, kind of low on the one end. And kind of the beauty with this, the way the card was designed, is that if you didn't like how this turned out, you can just flip it over and stamp it again, because we're only going to use a little portion of it for our card. And next we'll stamp our stem. Now the tulip set comes with a straight stem and a curved stem, and for this card we're going to use the straight stem. So we'll ink that up and we're going to stamp it so it just almost falls off the page, or off the cardstock I should say, and center that. Okay, so that's all of our stamping for this card. And now let's get our tulip and our leaf. So we gave you a 6x6 piece of the Designer Series paper with the tulips on it. And what you'll do is you'll cut out a tulip and a leaf. So pick out your favorite color. And what you want to do is you want to cut around it so you leave a nice white edge. Because when you punch it, the punch also leaves a white border. Okay, so we have that, and I think I'll take this leaf right next to it. When we prepped the supplies for you, we just took a 12x12 piece and we cut it into 4. So your tulips might be a different color than mine, but you should have a variety. You could make them all different. All right, so I cut that out, and now we're going to use the Post-it note technique. So because this is smaller than our punch, we're going to put a Post-it note at the top here, and that'll become our handle. So when we open our punch, we're going to work it upside down. We can stick our tulip in there and get it lined right up with a, what I'm looking for here is kind of an equal border all the way around. Let's see. There we go. Okay. And then we'll pull our Post-it note off from this and we'll attach it to our leaf. And we kind of want to make sure we're getting it oriented the same, get the image oriented the same way as the punch. And then we'll put our Post-it note on there again and we'll load that up. And again, look for that equal border all the way around and punch it out. And then just pull off that little remaining piece of the Post-it note. So there you go. That's called the Post-it note technique. Okay, let's assemble our card. We'll start by taking our Granny Apple green card base. We'll fold that over and use our bone folder to make a nice crease. And let's start by putting the inside greeting in. We'll use our snail adhesive. Some nice pressure on that. We'll set that aside for a second and we'll grab our crumb cake and the Whisper White piece we stamped the stem on. We'll attach those two. We're going to center the Whisper White piece with the crumb cake piece. And then, and if you need to trim off a little bit, just grab your paper snips and trim off any excess that you have. And then we'll grab our outside greeting and we'll put some adhesive on that. And then we'll attach this, probably about a good ½ an inch, maybe almost 3/4 of an inch up from the bottom. And I'm going to tuck it kind of tight. So we kind of have the same distance between the edge of the punched piece and the words and the crumb cake. Does that make sense? Okay. We got that attached. Then we'll attach this to the card front. And we're going to put it off to the left with about ½ an inch showing on the left-hand side of the Granny Apple green card base. And then we'll attach our tulip and our leaf. So for our tulip, we are going to use dimensionals. And we'll put 2 on there, I think. Pull off that release paper and then place the tulip wherever you'd like it. I liked a little border showing on the top and kind of centered left and right. And then for the tulip, we're going to do a couple things with the tulip. We're going to do a little bend to it, so it kind of, a little curve to it at the top. And we're going to flip it over, and with our small dimensionals, we're going to put a small one kind of towards the top, but not all the way to the top. And then we're going to bring in our glue dots. And we're going to grab a glue dot towards the bottom. And then we'll attach our leaf. So what this does oops, I forgot to release the paper here. Or take the paper off the back of the dimensional. What that does is it makes it nice and snug down here, but it gives a little dimension to the top of the tulip. All right, and the last thing to do is to add our linen thread. So we gave you a piece of 16-inch linen thread, and you can either fold it and cut it in half, or just fold it in half and then tie it. So to tie a bow, we're going to make a loop, wrap it around, and then pull it through that hole that you created, and then pull the ends through. So then you just kind of work it back and forth till you get the size bow that you want. Okay, and then you'll just trim the ends. Now I thought it was kind of fun to leave the ends kind of long and wispy like that. It kind of, as I was, when I packaged my kits, it was on a roll, the linen thread was on a roll, so it kind of gave it some fun curvy movement, and I kind of like that. And then we'll attach that with a glue dot. Might have to fold that glue dot back a little bit to hide it. But there we go. There's our first card design. Our next card is the Mother's Day Petal Pink Tulip card. And here are all the parts and pieces we used for this card. For this card, we're going to start by stamping all the tulip heads, and we're going to be using the Petal Pink ink to do that. So I'm going to show you the inside of the card. I did stamp a tulip on the inside, so let's start with that. We'll leave that open so we get a sense of where to put that. So we'll start out with the medium tulip, and I'm going to refer to them as the small, medium, and large tulip head. Okay, so take the medium tulip and ink it up and kind of put it at an angle towards the top. Now you may be thinking, why would she stamp the tulips first? Well, let me tell you. The reason I did the tulips first is because, especially on the front here, when I stamped the stems first and the leaves first, I felt like I would run out of, or I felt like I did run out of room on placement of the flowers. So by stamping the flowers first, then I can just use the stems or stamp the stems wherever makes the most sense. So we have a lot of Whisper White cardstock with this particular card, and you have two that are almost identical. But if you notice the card layout, they have a smaller one layered on top of a larger one. So make sure you're grabbing the smaller one to stamp on. And I started stamping with the large tulip first, and I placed it kind of at an angle really close to the top of the cardstock. And then I switched to the smaller and stamped that one kind of down below. Okay. So now I'm going to stamp the stems. And again, we'll go back to the we'll go back to the Granny Apple Green ink. And I'm just going to set this one off to the side because we're going to come back to that to stamp the greetings in a minute. So, and for this card, we're going to use the curved stem. So ink up your whole stamp, and then it's going to fall off the page, and that's just fine. So line up the top of the stem with the flower head, and then it'll stamp off towards the bottom. And then do the same thing here. Now notice where I'm going to stamp this one. I want it so it kind of comes together at the bottom. So, okay, pretty close. And then I'm going to bring back in our inside greeting piece and stamp the tulip there. Okay, now there are 3 different leaves with this stamp set, and this one coordinates exactly with the punch, but we're going to use these 2, and we're going to use this one primarily, and we'll use this one on the small tulip. So let me open that back up so you can see what that looks like. So we'll ink this up, and I'm going to touch the bottom of the leaf with the stem. Okay, and what's really cool about how they designed these the leaves in this set is you can stamp it this way or you can stamp it that way. So we'll do that for the front of our card. Okay, so we'll go back this way and we'll stamp this leaf that way, and then I'm going to turn it over and just squeak it in here. All right, and like I said, now we're going to go to that smaller leaf, and we're going to use that one here. Okay, and you know, really there's no right or wrong. This stamp set is very forgiving in terms of stamping. Okay, like I said, now we're going to go back and we're going to stamp our greetings in Petal Pink. So This is another reason I stamped the flowers before I did the greetings, especially placing the flower head first, so I knew where to place my greeting. So I'm going to remove the granny apple green, and I'm going to bring back the petal pink, and I'll ink up the greeting. I'm going to tuck it right in like that. Okay. And then I'll set that aside. And I'll bring in the punched piece that we did for you. And this is the new Label Me Fancy punch. And what's kind of cool about this punch is it actually gives you the ability to punch holes in your label, either on the side or on the short end. And it's great for threading ribbon through it. So that's kind of a cool punch. I like the way they designed that one. All right, now we're going to stamp Happy Mother's Day there. This could also be a birthday card. So the label, I believe, is big enough to stamp Happy Birthday if you wanted to. All right, there we go. All right, so we have all of our stamping done, and now we're going to work on assembling our card. So we'll start out by bringing our petal pink card base. We will fold that in half and use our bone folder again to make a nice crease on that. And then we'll add our inside message piece. And using snail, we'll attach that, and we'll want to put this in here so it has equal borders all the way around. Put nice pressure on it to get good adhesion. And then we'll add our designer series paper. And we're using the back side of the piece that would work with the heart punch pack that we have. Okay, and then this will go across the center. So we have equal borders on top and bottom around that piece. Okay, then let's layer these two. And actually they both, I don't know if you can see that or not, have dimensionals. So we will take our dimensionals and we'll put some on the back of this. And I think I'm going to use 6. So 1 in each corner and some in the middle. And while we have the dimensionals out, I'm going to add 6 to the back of this one as well. I love dimensionals. This is the best way to add a little texture to your cards. If you feel like something's missing, if you just add dimensionals to a layer, it just makes everything kind of pop and stand out. Okay, so we'll have the same borders, top and bottom, and the same border left and right. And then we'll add our tulip piece. You know what? I'm going to move this one. I don't like where I put that one. All right, again, now this will have equal borders all the way around. All right, and we're almost there. And we're gonna make this little Happy Mother's Day label. So we have the one that we stamped, and we provided you a second one in petal pink. And so what we're gonna do with this one is we're just going to take and we're gonna cut it in half. And then we're going to flip it over. Well, actually, let's flip this over. And we'll put snail on either end. And then we're just going to reattach, or not reattach it, but attach it to the left and right side. So just a little of the petal pink is peeking out. And we want about the same amount peeking out left and right. I flipped that over because I don't know if you picked up on it before or not, but Punches actually kind of have a right and wrong side when you punch it. It looks a little better one way or the other, but that's just a picky thing for me. Okay, now let's add our ribbon. So we're going to take our ribbon and we're just going to put a little piece of stale on the inside. Did I get any? I don't think I got any. Let me try it again. And we're going to fold it into a V. Okay. And then we're going to take our paper snips that we designated as ribbon because it has ribbon on it. And we're going to cut the tails from the kind of the outside of the V towards the inside of the V. Okay. And then I think the best way to probably attach that is using a couple dimensional, or a couple glue dots, I should say. And then place it where you'd like it. And then we're going to flip it over. Now notice that the greeting hangs over the edge. So when we place our dimensionals on the back of this, we don't want to get too close to the edge of this. So we're going to place one here, and then I'm going to place one, I'm going to hang just barely over the edge of the ribbon, just to kind of secure that as well. And then we'll put that to the front of our card. Place that wherever you'd like. Okay. And we have one last thing to do, and that is we're going to stamp a separate large tulip on a separate piece of cardstock, and then we're going to punch it out and we're going to pop that up for one more piece of dimension, or one more layer of dimension, I should say. So you have a strip of Whisper White cardstock. We're going to pull back in our petal pink punch, and we're going to stamp the tulip on the left side. Now I'm only going to stamp one, but the piece is big enough to stamp 3 tulips, one for each of your card. And the reason why I said I'm going to put it on the left side for this purpose is because I wanted to show you that it's important how you load your paper when you have multiple images that you want to stamp with a builder punch. You know what? I'm going to stamp a couple more because I want to show you what I mean. Okay. So if I were to punch the right one first, do you see what could happen here? I would punch I potentially could punch the second one with part of the leaf. So I want to start out by punching the tulip on the left first. And then I would work across. Then I would punch the next one. And that way I don't punch in to my next tulip image. Okay, so be really careful when you're using these builder punches to load your paper in correctly. Now you're only going to probably mess it up a couple times before you remember to do it that way. Trust me, I've done it. Probably more than I can count. Okay, and then we're just going to add a couple of dimensionals to the back of the tulip. And we'll attach that, and there you go. And if you want, that medium tulip is really beautiful on the envelope as well. Our last card is the Easter 3-panel tulip fun fold card. And here are all the parts and pieces for this card. Okay, we're going to start by stamping our greetings, and that's all the stamping we do. Is quite fast on the stamping part. Now, this piece of Whisper White for the inside greeting here, you don't want to fold this piece before you stamp it. Otherwise, it won't stamp continuously. You'll have an interruption in your image. And you know what? I'm going to tuck this piece of Whisper White on top of a piece of basic black, so it's a little easier for me to see. because the white kind of blends into my background. So we'll go back to our Granny Apple Green stamp pad. And we're going to stamp it with the Happy Easter, Happy Spring, Happy, Happy everything. And this score line is in the center. And what I found is the comma after the Easter and before the happy is kind of the midway point of this stamp, or the image, I should say. So what I'm going to do after I ink it up is I'm going to align the comma up with that score line. And that should be pretty much in the middle. Okay, we're going to set that aside. And then we're going to take the little classic label that we pre-punched for you using the classic label punch. And we're going to stamp hello. Now that goes on the outside, and you can see we are going to stamp it as close to the right as we can. So let's give that a try. There we go. And again, like the first card, if we don't like how that turned out, we can just flip it around because we won't see the end that we made the mistake on. Okay, so that's all our stamping actually. Now it's mostly about punching and assembling. Okay, so let's move on to punching. And you have strips of Daffodil Delight, Blushing Bride, and Pool Party. And those are the colors that we'll use for our tulips, okay? And we cut them this way for shipping purposes, but it'll be easy to punch out each of your tulips. And we don't have to worry about whether or not we catch any edge with the leaf because it's skinny enough. So we punch one that way, one this way, then we tear off a piece and then punch the third one. Because remember, we'll need one for each card. Okay, so there's our 3 tulips. And then we gave you 2 long strips to cut all the leaves out that you'll need, or punch all the leaves out that you'll need. And you'll want to load your cardstock from the left. And just keep feeding it across. You'll have all kinds of little fun confetti. But we need 2 leaves for each tulip. Where am I at here? I got 5. And here's 6. Okay, so there we go. And we'll get rid of all the rest of the stuff. Okay, so you can see the leaves, you know, you can put them this way. Well, actually it would be this way if you want, or this way. And I chose for this card to use it so the smaller end, or the skinnier end, is up. Okay, so what you do is you take your snail adhesive and you put a couple pieces of adhesive towards the bottom, and then you add your leaves. And I don't put a lot of pressure on the leaves until I get them placed how I would like them. And how I would like them is so that I have the same border kind of all the way around. And I do want to frame up the bottom of the tulip as well. So I think I need to move these just a little bit. Okay, so there's a little green on the bottom as well. Okay, so if I like how it looks, then I put a little pressure on it. So we'll do that for each of our tulips. Okay, so there we have our tulips. You know, I got a little extra adhesive here. I'm going to remove that so it doesn't stick to something I don't want it to. Okay, here we go. And then we have pre-cut 3 Whisper White squares using the Stitch Shapes dies, and 3 Granny Apple Green squares using the Layering Squares dies. And now we want to attach those 2. So, and we need 1 for each tulip. So we'll center the Whisper White piece inside the Granny Apple Green piece. All right, now we're going to attach our tulips. So you can decide which one you want to be on the front. For this, my sample, I chose the Daffodil Delight, and I put the Blushing Bride and the Pool Party on the inside. So just to kind of mix it up, I think I'll switch and I'll put the Blushing Bride one on the outside. Now I'm going to set that one aside because the other two we attach with snail. So they're nice and flat because they're on the inside of the card. And we center that up. Okay. And then with the one that's going to go on the front, we use dimensionals to attach that. But before I do, I'm going to put a little more snail on the back, and I'm going to tuck the hello behind the, or in front of the leaf and behind the tulip. And then I'm going to attach that with dimensionals. Okay, so the inside two are flat, the outside one has a little pop to it with the dimensionals. Okay, and while we have the dimensionals here, I'm just going to put 4 dimensionals on the back of this to get it ready when we do our final assembly. Okay, so I'm going to set those aside, and now we're going to work on the inside of our card. All right, so we'll start out with our card base and we'll add our 2 Daffodil Delight rectangles. So we'll fold this in half and we'll use our bone folder to make sure it has a nice crease to it. And then we'll take our Daffodil Delight pieces, you have 2, and we'll attach that to the inside of our card base. And we're looking for equal borders around the edges. And then you want to kind of look to make sure that they have the same line that goes across. Okay, there we go. All right, that's how we get started. Now we want to put the band in that makes this center pop. So you have this Whisper White piece and it has 4 score lines. Okay, so we'll start out by folding in the 2 ends. Okay, and then we'll take it and we'll fold it back on itself. Okay, and you know you've done it right when it forms a W. All right, so what we want to do is we don't want the center to be attached because that's what makes it pop. So we want to put adhesive on the shortcut edge and at the first score line. So I'm going to flip it over, and you can use just about any adhesive you want, but I'm going to use the tear and tape adhesive because I know that gives me great adhesion. I don't have to worry about my card falling apart on me, if you will. Sometimes when there are parts of your card that's going to take a little bit more wear and tear, if you will, you want to make sure you're using really strong adhesive, and this is a good one for this. Okay, so do you see where I put the adhesive or the tear and tape adhesive? At the shortcut edge, and then right before I got to the score line on both ends. Okay, now the trick to make this pop is that we don't want to lay it flat and line up the cut edges. What we want to do on each end is we want to line up the cut edge of the Whisper White with the cut edge of the Daffodil Delight. Okay, so I'm going to do them one at a time. I'm going to peel off the paper and the tear and tape adhesive. and I'm going to center it so I have the same distance on, or same space on the top and bottom of my band here. Okay, right, like that. And then I'm going to pull off this paper off the tear and tape adhesive. And keeping it straight, I'm going to now attach the other short end with the cut edge of the Whisper White. And to make sure it's going the right direction, I'm going to give it a little fold there, and then I'm going to put pressure on that. And there we go. All right. Now, I said I'm going to have the Daffodil Delight and the Pool Party Tulips on the inside. So when you put these down, I'm going to put my adhesive on the center of the first panel and the third panel, if you will. Okay. And then, I'm going to bring this back in. Then I'm going to attach my ground apple green piece. So I'll take my bone folder and I'll give that a nice score. Okay. One thing to keep in mind is we only want adhesive on the Whisper White piece, because if we get it too far on the edges of the ground apple green piece and it sticks to the Daffodil Delight piece, then it won't pop. So I think it's best to put the adhesive in the center like that, and now leaving a nice border, a piece here and a piece here, and I'm going to also put a piece like this. I'm making an eye shape, if you will. And then I'm going to center that up. I'd like the line to be the same in all my granny apple green pieces. And when I think I have it in the right spot, oops. Oops, now it's too low. I think that looks pretty good. I'm going to put a little pressure on it. And then I'm going to close my card. Okay. Now, our inside greeting. We're going to attach our two little strips of designer series paper. And I'm just going to have a little, like 1/8 inch of the Whisper White showing on either side. And I'll trim off the excess. All right, now you can sign your card one of two ways. You can sign it here, and if you want to sign this piece, I would not attach this until after you sign it, because it does not lay flat anymore, and that's part of the design, so the card pops and it's interesting. So if you want to sign this, you can, but again, I wouldn't attach it. Or you have the option of just signing your name on the back. So whichever way you'd like to go. So I'm going to leave this time around, so when I get ready to send it for Easter, I'll be all set. And then we just have to finish off the front of our card. So we'll attach the designer series paper to the granny apple green. And trim off any excess. And then we'll attach that to the front of our card. Again, we'll center that. And then we'll bring back in our Blushing Bride tulip and attach that to the front. Okay, there you go. So there's the Daffodil Delight tulip on the front, or the Blushing Bride, and then when you open them up, that's how they look. I have a few more samples to show you using the Timeless Tulip Bundle and also the Please Disc Punch paper. The first sample I'm going to show you, it looks a lot like one of the cards you made for this class, and I thought it might be fun to show you a starting point for this particular card for the class. What I decided when I did this, that I liked the crumb cake on both sides, so that's what you did. And I love this technique where you punch an image out at the same color as the background, and then you lay it down on top to create kind of a fun texture. What I didn't like about it for this particular card is I thought it competed a little bit with our focal point. And so I went a different direction from there for the class. And then I also like to create envelopes for all of my cards. And so I thought, well, how can I duplicate this on an envelope? And so what I did was I took, I think it was Petal Pink ink, and I inked up the whole tulip, and then I came back with my Calypso Coral marker, and I actually colored right on the stamp, and then I stamped it down. So it kind of gives you the same look as the Please Disc Punch paper. So I got really excited about that idea. So I created another card using that same technique, but I actually colored the stamp slightly different this time around before I stamped it down. So our colors here are Mint Macaron and Pretty Peacock. It's kind of hard to see, but I used Wink of Stella on the tulips to give it a little shimmer as well. And then I couldn't stop, so I created one more sample. And this one I also used the Stitch Framelit dies to create kind of a border, and I put my stamped image on the inside. I created a little dimension here by stamping the tulip 3 times, and then I punched one out with the punch, and then I actually fussy cut the other two, one half on one tulip and the other half on the other tulip. Then I took my bone folder and gave it a little bend here so that it popped up a little bit, and then I believe I put them down with glue dots, so it created, again, another little texture. Then when I saw the tulip punch, I thought, I wonder if you can create a 3-day tulip, and certainly you can. So this is kind of created like our third card that we made, except for rather than just having the tulip be punched and popped up with a dimensional, I punched 4 tulips and I created this 3D look. So let me show you quickly how I got the tulips to fold like that. So I took a strip of real red cardstock, and this is 1.5 inch wide, and I scored it at 3/4 of an inch. And I turned my punch upside down, and I punched 3 tulips. And I see how I have the score line centered down the tulip. I punched 3 of those, and then I just layered them up to create the pop-up tulip. And what I like about using 3 tulips that have been scored, one flat to attach them all to, is that when I mail it, I can fold it flat like this, tuck it in the envelope, and then when the recipient opens the envelope and pulls it out, it'll pop up like that. This is also a fun fold. It's our Z card fold. When you put it on the side, it looks kind of like a Z. Looks like this one's backwards. And we usually do it like this, but I thought it might be kind of fun to turn it and do it slightly different. And I found this really cute treat holder online. I can't remember what website I was on, but I just thought it was adorable. And it has little Hershey nuggets in there. So cute. The paper for the Hershey nuggets come from the Peaceful Poppies Designer Series paper. Let me just show you how I made the base for our treat holder. You take a piece of cardstock. This happens to be Granny Apple Green, and it's 2 3/4 by 2 3/4, and you score it at you score it at 3/4 of an inch all the way around. Then you cut from the cut edge up to the first score line on two sides opposite each other, and then you fold it. I'd recommend a bone folder for this, but for this purpose, I'll just quickly fold it with my hands. And then you just adhere the tabs together to create a little box. I use tear and tape to make sure the box is really secure. The handle is 1/2 inch by 5 inches, and then you need 4 tulips. I punched mine in Flirty Flamingo. The greeting here comes from our stamp that we use for our 3rd card, and I just took my Flirty Flamingo marker, colored the happy spring, and stamped it down on a piece of Whisper White cardstock, and used my classic label punch to punch it out. This is a double punch, if you will. So I punched the image close to one edge of the pointed edge of the punch, and then after I had punched it out, I tucked it back in the other way to create that same border on this side. So I took my classic label punch, which is a little longer, and shortened it so it would be just the right size for this cute little box. The Pleases punch paper, as we've been talking about, not only went with the Tulip Builder Punch, it also goes with the Heart Punch Pack, and it also goes with the Umbrella Builder Punch from the 2020 January to June mini catalog. So I couldn't resist. I had to make a little sample using the Umbrella Punch, and here's what I came up with. I punched the umbrella from the paper, and this was on the opposite side of the paper, so those cute little raindrops. And then this one opens this way. The paper also coordinates with the celebration items, Thoughtful Blooms, and the Small Bloom Punch. And as you can see, if you spend $50, you can get this stamp set. If you spend $100, you can get that punch. And we were told that the punch will be available for sale in the new annual catalog coming out in June. So if you don't happen to earn that by the end of March, you can also purchase it. But you might want to get this because it coordinates so well together. And here's our card. I punched the flowers out of the Designer Series paper, and then I took this little cute stamp with our Early Espresso ink, and I added centers to my flowers. And then it opens like that. This embossed piece comes from our Layering Leaves Dynamic Textured Impressions embossing folder, which is quite a mouthful, but that's how I got that texture on there. And I just thought it was kind of reminiscent of that stamp. And those are my samples for you today. Thanks for participating in this month's Stampin' Class by Mail. And now here's Gina with a few more things for you.
Thanks for demonstrating how to make those beautiful cards, Brenda. If you ordered a Class by Mail kit from either Brenda or me, make sure to follow the link in the email that shared this video with you to see a specially curated Pinterest board with lots of additional ideas for how to use the Timeless Tulips materials. In April, it's my turn to design and share the cards with you, and I'm excited to show you a sneak peek of the 3 card designs. We'll be using the Bonanza Buddies suite of Stampin' Up! Products from the January to June 2020 mini catalog, and one of our cards features a fun fold design. From the suite, we'll be using the Bonanza Buddies stamps, Bonanza dies, Birthday Bonanza Designer Series paper, assorted pom-poms, and we'll be using the 1/4 inch Whisper White crinkled seam binding ribbon. We'll also be using a celebration item, the metallic Baker's Twine and Sequins combo pack, and we'll have some elements using the tufted 3D embossing folder, layering circles dies, and stitch shapes dies. The embossing and die pieces will be included right along with the kit that you order from us. The registration deadline to guarantee your kit is April 5th, and we also have some additional bonuses if you sign up by March 27th, 2020. If you register by that date, you'll get 2 completed cards with envelopes shipped along with your kit. We also have some bonuses if you find new people to take the class by mail, so make sure to check your email or reach out to Brenda or me if you want to learn more. If you're not already on our email list, please let one of us know and we can get you all the information you need about this and the other fun stamping opportunities we have. Also, remember that it's Stampin' Up's celebration period right now until the end of March. For every $50 you spend before shipping and handling and tax, you get to select an item from the celebration catalog. So now's a good time to stock up on things like adhesive and envelopes, as well as order whatever new supplies you've had your eye on. There are bonuses for hosting a stamping event or joining the Stampin' Up team during celebration, again through the end of March as well. Be sure to check it out and get in touch with me or Brenda if you have any questions. Please let us know if you have any feedback on the class by mail, and happy stamping!